Anybody that really tries to do something, they're going to either try to kill or jail. And when the whole media is singing your praises, that should tell you something.
And we need to talk about bioweapons. I know a lot now about bioweapons because I've been doing a book on it for the past 2.5 years, and you know, the technology that we now have to develop these microbes, we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure, genetic differentials among different races of the receptors of the ACE2 receptor. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. But we don't know whether it was deliberately targeted that or not. But there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact to that. We do know that the Chinese are spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing ethnic bioweapons, and we are developing ethnic bioweapons. That's what all of those labs in the Ukraine are about. They're collecting Russian DNA, they're collecting Chinese DNA, so that we can target people by race.
The guy just said all the quiet parts out loud, and people have lost their mind, and of calling him anti-Semitic. There was nothing he said there that was anti-Semitic. Nothing. Anyone that's saying that's a distraction. They don't want you to hear what he has to say. Man's already hard enough to understand because he's got a little speech issue or whatever. But what he said there is crystal clear. He's just quoting the science. After the New York Post and other people attacked him, he issued a statement over Twitter. The New York Post story is mistaken. I have never, ever suggested that the COVID-19 virus was targeted to spare Jews. That's not what he just said, and he's totally accurate. I accurately pointed out during an off-the-record conversation that the U.S. and other governments are developing ethnically targeted bioweapons, and that a 2021 study of the COVID-19 virus shows that COVID-19 appears to disproportionately affect certain races since the Furencleave docking site is most compatible with blacks and Caucasians and least compatible with ethnic Chinese, Finns, and Ashkenazi Jews. In that sense, it serves as a kind of proof of concept for ethnically targeted bioweapons. I do not believe and never imply that the ethnic effect was deliberately engineered. That study is here, and then he dropped the receipt, a link to the study. Yeah. We had this guy here in Nashville, Royce, and I don't know if it showed up on screen, but I nearly broke down in tears when we had him here talking about COVID. We had a bunch of people, had Senator Ron Johnson, we had John Stockton, we had an impressive group of people, Ken Maurer, NBA, your friend, buddy, impressive group of people talking about COVID-19 and vaccine injuries. And Robert Kennedy talked so boldly and transparently about all issues, including what happened to his father and his uncle. And I was like, whoa, this dude is courageous. He's putting his life on the line. He knows exactly. If you're a Kennedy and your dad was assassinated, likely by the CIA, and your uncle was assassinated, likely by the CIA, for challenging the military-industrial complex, he said that on that show, that the Department of Defense is behind the vaccines. He just,
That's a fact.
yeah, he just everything. And so, I mean, I just nearly cried at his bravery, and to see this kind of attack for it. Anyway, this guy potentially is a bigger threat to the establishment than even Donald Trump.
Well, number one, every time this man is a hero. I mean, he's a chip off the old block, and every time he speaks, the American people should listen. Every time he speaks, Donald Trump should listen, and vice versa. I've already said publicly that I think the best ticket to challenge the establishment is Trump and RFK 2024. They'll never let RFK come through the Democratic process. He'll never win. He should, but he will not win a primary against Joe Biden, which tells you everything you need to know about the Democratic Party and the real juice behind the New World Order. If he should not be able to come through the primary process, him being a vice president with Donald Trump would put real American populism and the corruption that this country's had in it for 60 years right up in the face of the establishment, and I support that. Is he a bigger threat to the establishment? Potentially, because the moral hazard that still hangs from the CIA. Look, the military-industrial complex is the juice in this country. I've said it since day one. The banks run them. They run the scam. The military-industrial complex is the iron fist of the financial Ponzi scheme. Okay, if his candidacy, his being a public figure and really stepping into the limelight, rectifies the freeze in the boomer demographic in this country when Kennedy was assassinated. So yeah, this country's been dealing with the Fed and all of these different corrupt institutions for well over 100 years. But there was something specific that happened when they killed Kennedy. We had the height of this sort of human rights renaissance, this reimagining of what it meant to be America in the 60s, right? Whether it was race and some people it was women, whether it was the LGBTQ, and some people would argue that involvement of that. But there was a time where we were questioning, like, what is America gonna be? And at the pinnacle of that moment, a bright, young political star had his head blown off for challenging the juice in this country. And the boomers never got over that. And afterward, you saw the radical materialism take off and everybody be more interested in their 401ks and their 501c3 status than in morals and national honor and sacred honor.
I don't disagree, but I think when you put the assassinations together, Kennedy again, and MLK.
And Malcolm.
Malcolm to a lesser
Those
degree.
four, yeah.
But to a lesser degree. Those, and I just say Malcolm because, to a lesser degree, because, you know, Nation of Islam killed Malcolm and.
But remember now, Hoover said that Malcolm was the most dangerous, was the most likely to ascend to the role of being the Black Messiah that could actually unify, even more so than MLK. And then it was Fred Hampton. Then they actually whacked Fred Hampton because he was young enough to do it.
I don't like Fred Hampton. I don't want to get distracted.
Yeah, okay.
But regardless, I think that generation and every generation since has known what the real price for change is and has said, I don't want to pay it.
Yep.
And that's why, in retrospect, I look back and I said this privately. I never said it publicly because I think it would have been inappropriate to say publicly, but I think I can say it in the aftermath. It's like, unless they try to kill or jail Barack Obama, he ain't really do nothing. That's my take on any of these guys. Anybody that really tries to do something, they're gonna either try to kill or jail. And when the whole media is singing your praises, that should tell you something. That's not, because again, as we talked about at the beginning of this show, what's Charles Barkley saying? Exactly what he's been told to say.
Yeah.
Everybody says what they've been told to say. And even the controlled opposition says what they're told to say.
Yeah.
And so there was some criticism of Obama allowed on Fox News, controlled opposition, to make it look like, oh, there's a yin to the yang. But for the most part, everybody worshiped and sang the praises of Barack Obama, and that's because that's what the establishment wanted to have happen. When they killed Kennedy, that should have let you know in '63 who's in control. Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.